Hey guys, this is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us on the Thrive Bites podcast. This is season 4, and we're so excited for you to be here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Colin Zhu, double boarded in family and lifestyle medicine, and I interview the best and most passionate health and wellness experts of the industry on this platform. And we talk about plant-powered living, emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And this season, we're taking it live, we're taking it on multiple platforms, and we're taking it as a Q&A discussion as well as our interviewing of our guests. So we're super stoked about this, and please remember to like and subscribe down below, and we will see you. Welcome to the next episode. Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Thrive Bites Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. You can be anywhere in the world, and I really appreciate you spending just a few moments with us here today. So I cannot wait to introduce the next guest. Her name is Dr. Sharon Grossman, and she is the author of the international bestseller, The 7E Solution to Burnout: Transforming High Achievers from Exhausted to Extraordinary. I like that. She's the founder of the Exhausted to Extraordinary model, and over the past 19 years has helped over 500 physicians, entrepreneurs, and executives reshape their thinking and go from fried and frazzled to energized and exhilarated. I love the alliteration. And she talks about topics, a whole wide range of topics, going over emotional intelligence, burnout, self-care, optimal performance, and last but not least, mindset. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Sharon Grossman. Hello.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk to you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I am super thrilled for you to just spend a few moments with us. How has everything been going, and where are you calling from?
Yeah, so we are right now in Miami Beach. We recently relocated from San Francisco, so it's been an interesting few months, just kind of packing and selling the house and moving and traveling cross country. But we're here, we're settled, and super excited, as I said, to be here and really start to share this message with the people who need it the most.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait. We were talking a little bit offline, and we were just saying how these principles can be applicable to almost everyone, right? So I can't wait to get into the nitty gritty. So I like to start off by the origin, right? From how does, how do you go from point A to point B, your origin story, and how did you arrive to being in a position where you get motivated, fired up, just really, really driven to helping others to get out of burnout and, optimizing self-care and shifting to, a more positive mindset. Like, how did that come about for you?
Well, there's so many components to your question. So really what I would say is that I'm a trained psychologist, and I've been doing therapy for many, many years. And I decided that I really wanted to start doing coaching primarily. And I really had to ask myself, what kind of business do I want to lead? How do I want to spend my time? And most importantly, who do I want to work with? And that was a really crucial and strategic question, because as I'm building my business, I want to make sure that it is the kind of life that I want to create. And I've always been very much driven by the value of lifestyle. So if it's something that is going to promote a lifestyle where I feel like I'm in my passion and I'm helping people, then that's what I want to do. And so as I was thinking about that, I thought, there are certain kinds of people that I enjoy working with the most. They tend to be people who are highly driven. And so one of the questions that I was asking myself is, what is one of the things that they struggle with that I can help them? And I came across burnout. And as I started to do some reading and research on the topic, one of the things that struck me was that a lot of my clients would come in and they would describe how they were feeling, but they would never really use the word burnout. And then when I would say to them, it sounds like maybe you're burning out, it's almost like all of a sudden it dawned on them and they'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? But I think the issue is like we're really familiar with the term stress, but with burnout, like everybody seems to have like a different idea of what it means. And people usually think about burnout as something that happens at the end where like I'm done and like there's nothing more to give. But burnout's really kind of a process that happens over time. And so part of what I saw as my mission, first and foremost, is to educate people on what burnout actually is and what you can look for in terms of symptoms so that you can identify it early and start to intervene.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder, I'm curious, do you think like in that context, when you're asking, and asking for the word burnout, do you think it's too taboo of a word? Kind of like, when we're growing up in school and you go into, and then you learn about sex education and you just, mention sex, you're like, ooh, is it too taboo of a word, you think? Or is it, why do you think they don't associate what they're going through with the word burnout?
So two answers to that question. One is I think that sometimes people just don't realize that what they're experiencing is burnout simply because they have maybe a different understanding of what burnout is. And I think on the other end of the spectrum, you have people who are seeing it as taboo. And there's a couple of different reasons for that as well. One is that I've heard a lot of physicians actually talk about this, that they feel really resentful to talk about them burning out when they see the industry as the problem, when they see their job as the problem. So like, how dare you talk to me about burnout? Like, how else do you expect me to feel given my circumstances? And then I think there's also the taboo of the same thing that we see in mental health, right? Like, I don't want people to know that this is something that's actually happening because maybe they'll judge me. And I'm supposed to be this resilient leader. I'm supposed to be this person who has it all together. I'm supposed to take care of everybody else. So I can't show any sort of weakness, right? So it's those kinds of things that sometimes get in the way of actually doing whatever you need to do to take care of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And the population or the subset that you're addressing sounds like high level, executive types, high achieving, high driven people. What was it about this demographics that appealed to you? Was it because it's a very complex type of situation that they're in because they're in leadership roles? Like, what was it that drew you to this type of demographics as opposed to some another subset?
I would say it's probably twofold. One is that I could really identify with them because I'm somebody who's very driven. I'm kind of type A. I always have something that I like to work on. My dad would always joke and say, so what are you doing for your 10 o'clock slot? And then what do you have going on for your 11 o'clock slot? Like, he was always making fun of me because I tend to fill up the calendar.
Does he still do that?
Just a little bit, because he's kind of like the polar opposite of me. He like doesn't have much going on, and he's just kind of more impulsive. So he'll just find something to do last minute, so he's not bored. But I'm a planner, so I'll like plan some things to do, and I'm also a creative person, so I'm always like finding things to work on, whether it's for my business or for anything else that I'm working on. So I think that's perhaps part of it. And then I like them because, if you think about it, what happens in coaching is you want somebody to show up motivated to do the work, to focus on their own self-improvement. And I find that a lot of the people in this demographic, whether we're talking about physicians or executives or people in really like high stress industries, these are people that care about their performance. And typically they want to do whatever it takes to better themselves. And sometimes that means that I have to lead with the end result of like, you'll get more done in less time, or you will have more productivity and kind
or
of.
else they'll just check out. They're like, I'm not interested. I don't know what you're trying to sell me here.
Well, like sometimes you have to kind of meet people where they're at. And like, if that's where they're at and they don't really care about themselves and that's why they're burning out, we can talk about like how your productivity is going to improve. And we can talk about how you're going to feel more confident and you're going to overcome that perfectionism or the procrastination or anything that's getting in the way of your productivity. But we can also talk about how you're going to feel, like you'll have more confidence and you'll overcome that imposter syndrome or whatever it is that could also be delaying your productivity, but also just improving the quality of your existence, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I totally resonate and advocate for it. And it's just really sad, for those in the audience that don't know, we talk a lot about like physician wellness, physician burnout, physician suicide. And, it might be, I guess, hashtags or trends, to some ears. But, quite frankly, it's been happening for a while and slowly getting better, as we create more awareness. Dr. Sharon, do you have any personal experience, with, burnout yourself, in involving with the work that you do? Because I'm a huge advocate of preaching what you practice and, role modeling and, doing the best you can, for yourself to provide a better example, for our patients and clients. So do you have any personal experience in terms of burnout that you can share?
So I think that's what actually makes my story a little bit more unique, because I find that almost all the people out there who do the work that I do have a personal experience of burnout. Some of them have multiple cycles of it. And so they show up from their personal story and say like, this is what happened to me. Then I learned how to overcome it. And now I want to teach that to other people, which I think is great. But like I said, my entire life, I've been driven by this value of lifestyle. And so I was very careful from the very beginning, from the get-go, to create my life in such a way where I can avoid that from happening. So I don't have much of a sob story to share, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. But what I can tell you is that I am very strategic. I'm kind of different from a lot of people in how they run their life. And I guess that's, part of what I bring to the work is how to help other people be more strategic, less reactive, so that they can design their life on purpose to be whatever it is that they want to be. And oftentimes when people come to me, they are feeling really depressed, really disheartened. A lot of times, especially with physicians, I hear that they've started to question whether medicine is the right place for them. And it's not because they don't love medicine, but it's because they just feel that it's taking such a toll on them and they don't know how to do it in any other way. And so it's very heartbreaking to say like, I love doing this work, but it's killing me. So I have to find something else. And I always say to them, before you start to go in another direction, let's first work on you and then see if when you've made these changes, you can do this work and have a different result. And from that place, you get to decide if you want to change careers, but don't do it from like an impulsive place.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. Filling up your own cup first before, you have enough to give to others. So definitely that self-care that we're going to go more into. So let's go back to basics a little bit. Can you help us define, burnout in your own words and help us to, I guess, have warning signs or red flags to know, when am I burning out, and, after that, be able to kind of minimize it.
Yeah, well, that's a really good place to start. As I said, a lot of times people aren't really clear on how to define burnout. And so they're not identifying it in themselves. And so if you think about it, burnout is basically chronic stress. And chronic stress by definition means that you have stress that is happening and building, and there's like layers and layers of it over time. And if you think about what stress is, it's basically a perception that whatever circumstances you're facing, those circumstances outweigh the resources that you have to cope. And so if you are in a situation where you feel like you can't handle whatever the demands are on you, then that's going to feel really stressful. And if that's day in and day out, over time, that's going to start really taking a toll on you. And that's where burnout starts to happen. And when I say burnout, it's more than just like, oh my God, I feel so stressed because I have all this work to do. But it's also like, now I'm starting to feel the effects of that, where first thing you might notice is there's mental exhaustion. And what that means is that you're not able to focus as well. We were talking just a few minutes ago about productivity and how that can be negatively affected when you're burned out. And this is one of the main reasons why, because you just can't concentrate on your work no matter how much you try. You know, your head's just not there. It's kind of like when you're depressed. You know, you can try as hard as you can to focus and to do all the work that you know how to do. But when you're in that mental state that prevents you from being at your best mentally, then it doesn't matter how hard you try. It's going to take you a lot longer. And even when you spend all this extra time, you might not be able to create those same results. So what happens next is that people find that they become kind of cynical, and they have this attitude shift about their job and their ability to do it. And it's kind of like, well, you know, so like, who cares, or what's the point, or it's never going to change. Like, it is what it is. Those kinds of statements just is an indication that you're burning out, right? If you're having those kinds of statements, because like, that's not how you're supposed to be at work. If, you know, I know a lot of times people are like, it's just work, you know, that's how it is. It doesn't have to be like that, you know? And if that's how it is, then that's a wake-up call for you to figure things out to make them better, right? We didn't go to school for all these years to be a professional and then show up and have every day feel like something you have to dread. Like, that's not the point of work. And then ultimately, because your performance starts to decline, which is, by the way, like the third symptom of, or the red flag that you can see with regards to burnout, it really affects your confidence. And that's why so much of this work is really mental, because you start out with this perception about stress, right? That's what we said. You have some sort of circumstances, you have some perception about it. So that's kind of a mental process. Then you have this attitude change, which is also kind of some thoughts that you have, some mental processes over there. And then with regards to your performance, it starts to affect your confidence and what we call your self-efficacy. So basically what that means is your belief in your ability to do your work. So again, with all three of these flags of burnout, like basically what we're saying is they're all mental. And that's not to say that, you know, your job isn't really demanding or that you don't have good reason for feeling the way that you do, but that is actually a really good sign that it's something that you actually can control, right? And that is part of the work that we do, is learning to think differently, to perceive your reality in a new way that works better, that doesn't stress you out as much, right? And figuring out all kinds of mindset strategies and just like workplace and living micro habits that are going to allow you to have more energy and to just change how you feel about your profession, your job.
Yeah, exactly. I think having the proper definitions, having the understanding of, you know, when am I hitting this, I guess, red flag, or this, you know, I mean, you know, milestone is a good example, but, you know, when I'm hitting this red flag, to know like, okay, it seems like I'm on the track, you know, towards that, you know, and then how do I readjust and how do I pivot for that is important. So definitions and just basic vocabulary goes a long way. So I really appreciate you sharing that. My next question is that, do you feel like, you know, because we talk a lot about, you know, you mentioned mental, right? You mentioned about, you know, mindset strategies and looking at things from a different perspective. Do you think like, you know, burnout is more of like a mindset Perspective, is it, kind of like a physical issue, or is it like a product of our environment? Because, we also talk about, on other episodes, on other topics, we talk about mental health and how so much emerging evidence and how that's connected to our gut health. So you have that, physical, relationship. But I'm just curious to see, through your experience and through your research and all that, how much is it more mental? Is it more physical, like in the body, or is it a product of our environment, or is it a combination of everything?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I'm a true believer in that mind body connection. So it does have to include all of those factors. Our environment very much affects us. And so when I was talking before about creating micro habits, one of the things that I work with my clients on is trying to create a kind of environment that is less stressful. And what that means is that maybe if you have clutter on your desk and you sit down to do your work, that is an energy drain right there. So how to keep your environment more organized helps you to feel calmer in the space. When it comes to your body, I mean, even if stress is something that starts as a perception and is mental, it has an effect on your body. And when you have that effect on your body, it can be something that zaps your energy, and then you feel more fatigue, and the more fatigue you feel, like the less you're able to focus. Like they're all interconnected. So I think they're important to focus on. And I integrate all of those into my coaching because I know how everything kind of builds on everything else. So you have to be able to address all the aspects of your life because they do. You don't live in a bubble. You can work on your mind all day long, but if your environment is really chaotic, it's going to have an effect on you. And if you're not taking care of your body, you're not sleeping enough, you're not exercising, you're not eating healthy, you're going to have less energy. You're going to be able to focus less. And so that's going to start that whole cycle of now I can't get my work done. And what does that mean about me that I'm not able to get it done? Right? Like they're all really important. They go together.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it is where, we became such a very workaholic society, and, either we're just, conditioned, or, the environment is just kind of built where you're just kind of going, 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 needing to make numbers, needing to meet a certain quota, or a certain number, dollar sign, whatever have you, right? How did I guess my real question is like, how did this come to be? Like I don't know if there's like a historical timeline where something happened in the middle of this trajectory that to say like, okay, guys, we have to increase productivity here, and we need to do X, Y, and Z times 1,000, right? So like, has there been anything over time that you can think of that might have maybe shifted this kind of dynamic? Because you could say, maybe like in the urban, more metropolitan areas, and people are just kind of like go, go, go. You moved over to, well, Florida, I don't really consider it East Coast. I think Florida is its own country, to be honest. But I'm from New Jersey originally. So yeah, I'm from New Jersey originally, and being in the tri-state area, of Manhattan, Connecticut, it's very go, go, go. And so,
Yes.
part of the reason why I left, so we just kind of swap sides. But like, how much of it is like, what happened? What I'm saying? Like, is there anything that you've picked up along the way to say like, society just became like this?
It's a very interesting question because I think that we are really wired for survival. So if you look at how we were way back in the day, it was really more about like, I need to make money to support my family. We got to put food on the table. And then over time, things evolved. And I think a lot of it had to do with technology. Like the more you can get done with technology, the more the expectations started to rise. And then I think as a result of that, over time, as the expectations started to change, our culture started to change. Like we now associate higher productivity with greater self-worth, right? Like I'm not worth anything if I don't create, if I don't produce. And so people's whole self-worth kind of got woven into their productivity. And that's a lot of the work that I have to do with my clients, is to help them really separate the two, because like it's been programmed in, right? Like you have to show something for yourself. And if you have nothing to show for yourself, then you are nothing. And that's so wrong. And I think people get that just so confused with the reality of the situation, which is that you are worthy regardless of any sort of productivity, right? Like if you did nothing, just you being alive, like you existing in the world, you have worth. And anything that you produce is completely separate, and it's kind of like the cherry on top. And that's not to say that you shouldn't produce anything in the world, but it's just that you shouldn't bake it into your self-worth. It's just like two different paradigms. And so it's really important to kind of take the stitches out of that, if you want to use a medical terminology,
yeah.
right? Like if we've stitched those things together, you kind of have to pull that string out and be able to see them as two separate.
Yeah, you don't want to pull those out, especially when they're healing together. You don't want to pull. No, I am very, very glad that you brought that up, because so much of our self-worth, in this performance type of or productivity type of environment that we're always in, so much is tied with that. Like you said, like when has that been the most important thing in terms of, I guess, our self-esteem, how we view ourselves, how other people look at us. Simple example is, after the internet, then became social media, and now we're just bombarded with all these different things that we're just conditioned to think like, oh, I have to look like this or else I'm not worthy, right? And we can see this. Obviously, it is an entirely different topic, but we could see this in our younger generations that are tying this. So similarly, meeting numbers and meeting dollar signs, it's just not right. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like everything has been evolving rapidly, way faster than we've been evolving in a way. So it's almost like you almost have to kind of slow down and allow yourself to catch up, with the rest of the world, because it seems like it's just going by so fast.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just did an interview with Ken Honda, and if you're not familiar with him, he is what they call Japan's Zen millionaire. And he's written hundreds of books, and he's given away like 2 million books. And his whole philosophy is taken from Zen. And he talks about this whole idea of how it doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or almost no money, you have the same problems. And that is because you believe that you need to have more money and that's going to solve all of your issues. But the soon as you have more money, you just start to buy more stuff, and then you're still in the same predicament and you never arrive. So this is what I call the arrival fallacy, where you say to yourself, if only then, right? And it's like we're externalizing, we're putting all of our power outside of ourselves. We're trying to figure out how to heal ourselves by focusing on something outside, and that never works, right? Whether it's burnout or your financial debt or anything else, it's like you can't look outside for the answer. The answer is always inside of you. And that's why I like the work that I do with Burnout is so impactful, because I'm teaching people how to take back their power, right? And to recognize that it's not to say that it's your fault that you've burned out, but it's more to say that whatever's happened has happened, and now you get to learn how to do it differently, which is actually really empowering. If it really was something external, then that would be very bad news, because there'd be nothing you could do about it. Right. And that's how they usually come to me, with that understanding of like, it's something external. I don't know what to do. Right. There's a lot of that helplessness. And then I'm like, no, like you can change this. You can actually have very different results because it's internal. Right. So it's kind of like, it kind of turns your head a little bit around, where you're kind of like, I don't know what to make of this. Like, is this good? Is this bad? Like, I thought it was there and now it's here. And like, so there's a little bit of that happening in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. One of my favorites, I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins, and he says this thing where life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, and it goes back to what you're saying in terms of deriving your own strategies, like what are the solutions, and it's nothing outside of you, it's actually all internal. So we're going to shift gears and talk about self-care in a bit after this commercial break. And this is Dr. Sharon Grossman, and we are here talking about how to prevent burnout and optimizing self-care. So if you guys have any comments, questions that you want to ask Dr. Sharon, please let us know and type them in, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Colin Zhu, and welcome to the Thrive Formula. I'm so excited for you to be here and to be just a little curious about what we do. If you know a little bit about my work, I created the Chef Doc in January 2017, and since launching it, I've written a book about thriving and hosting my podcast called Thrive Bites, where we've reached over 90 countries and counting. It's been a humbling and unexpected experience so far. The main driving force to create the Chef Doc was born out of the need to help others to combat chronic lifestyle-related diseases such as high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, inactive physical lifestyle, and simply not being able to cook healthfully. I noticed the same paucity and deficit within our medical school education and also within our medical training across the nation. 2020 for us, like the rest of the world, gave us a new set of challenges. Even with health disparities and racial injustice, I decided to look at things from a very silver lining perspective. And that meant, how do we become more resilient as a community? How do we pivot as a human species? Do I focus on me or us? With so many different people and different walks of life, I realized that we're more similar than dissimilar. And to cultivate a thriving mindset meant a lot of self-work, self-education, and practical tools, but also in conjunction with other people. I could not be where I am without the support and foundation of others. That means right now, more than ever, we need to be unified and we need to thrive together. Therefore, I decided to create this virtual summit experience, gathering and collaborating with over 45 speakers from different parts of the health and wellness industry to inspire, educate, and teach you the tools to thrive, not just in your own life, but also to those around you. And we will do this through the 5 pillars, what I like to call my 5 to thrive. Food as medicine, functional fitness, relationships, community, and resilience. I'm beyond ecstatic for you to be here, and the only question I would ask is, do you dare to choose to thrive in your own life? If you do, then come on in, let's learn together, and I'll see you inside. Thank you very much.
All right. So for those of you who are joining us, this is Dr. Sharon Grossman, and we are talking about preventing burnout and optimizing self-care. So that's the next thing we're going to talk about is self-care. And, nowadays, I feel like everything can be hashtagable. I don't know if that's an actual word you can actually use, but, a trend, a movement, and some ways, it can be a very positive, things, and sometimes, maybe not so much, and just to kind of create, some kind of headlines or news, right? But in terms of self-care by itself, how much is it a real thing that we actually have to pay attention to? And, what would you say would be the first things that we need to start being aware of to get started?
So the way that I like to have people think about self-care is just your energy level. So one of the things that people can really relate to easily is their phone. So when you look at your phone, the first thing you look at is like, how much battery do I have, right? And then you can make a decision based on that says, like, if my battery is at 10%, I plug it in. It's kind of a no-brainer. If my battery is at 90%, I probably don't have to plug it in. And I think you can think about yourself in the same way. Using that metaphor can be really helpful. So you have to tune into yourself and ask, like, where is my energy level right now? So if you did have a battery the same way your phone does, what would your battery be at right now? And that should dictate what you do. Do you then focus on getting work done, or do you take a rest? Do you engage in tasks that require a lot of mental energy, or do you engage in tasks that take very little mental energy? Do you engage in tasks that are really complex, or do you engage in tasks that are super simple? So those are the kinds of questions that you can answer based on your energy level. So for instance, if you have to sit down and, like, let's say you're a writer and you're going to have to really focus for 2 hours on writing an article or whatever, then you need to have a good amount of energy, because as we said, it takes a lot of mental focus. If you're going to send out a simple email, that's something you can do when your energy is lower, because it doesn't require as much. So you also have to be strategic about what you do when. And that's all really helpful. And if your energy is really lagging, that's an invitation for you to create some restful periods, re-energizing periods. So when we talk about recharging our phone, it's like there's only one solution. You just plug it in. But for us, it could look like a variety of different things. And for every person, it's gonna be something different, because what works for me may not work for you, Colin. So, for some people, it's taking a walk. For other people, it's maybe drinking some water, listening to some calming music. It can be doing a quick meditation. There's so many different things that you can do. If you're working from home, maybe you take a nap. There's a whole variety of things that you could do. But the most important thing is not what you do, but it's when you do it and why you're doing it, right? So to get really clear on that can really give you some direction of what you need to do to really take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the cell phone battery analogy, because in a way it goes back to the productivity and needing to produce. At the end of the day, it's almost like we're just sought out to be machines, but we are way more different, way more complex than machinery. Hopefully we don't become in a world where it's like, what is that movie called, iRobot, or any other type of apocalyptic movies where the machines take over, because we're just literally wired differently. And we're just very beautiful machinery, and so many different aspects come in and out of us. So in terms of self-care, what would you say are the biggest misconceptions about it? What is not considered self-care that people would commonly mistake it for?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not really sure what people think might be self-care that isn't, but one thing that comes to mind is, so I was working with a client. He happened to be a physician, and he had one day a week where he was working late. He'd come home, it'd be about 8:00, and he just kind of wanted to eat really quick, kind of stuff your face, and then sit down and watch some Netflix, because it's like, I don't have the energy to do anything else. Like, nobody talk to me. Everybody leave me alone. I just want to be in my bubble. And so I asked him, when you get up off that couch after watching Netflix, how do you feel? Do you feel more energized, less energized, or just as energized as when you sat down? And what he realized was that he actually felt less energized afterwards. And so what I said to him is, there's nothing wrong with making time for Netflix. It's entertaining. It doesn't take up like a lot of energy. It's something that you can do, for fun. But you have to be really strategic again about when you do it. And if you're already low on energy and you want a little bit of a boost, and that's actually making you feel less energized by the end of it, then that's probably not the best time to do it. Mm-hmm. And so he became really hyper aware of what he's doing and how it's making him feel. And that's what I really want for all of you to be able to do, is to become more self-aware. What do I need right now? How is this activity that I'm engaging in affecting my energy? Is this the right thing for me in this moment, or should I find something else? And the more you are tuned into that, the more you can create a menu of options that become your go-to. Like, I know that when I feel like this, I do this activity. That should be something that you strive for in terms of your own self-awareness, because it's going to really serve you. It's kind of like how when we learn time management and kind of the whole productivity hack stuff, we learn about our natural rhythms and how some people have more energy in the morning. And so they should sit down and do their most challenging tasks in the morning. And other people are more night owls, and they want everybody to go away and to be left in the dark without all the stimulation. And that's when they do their best work. That's something that you have to know about yourself. And based on that information, you're going to decide when you sit down to do that task that requires as much energy as you have to give. And in the same way, in terms of output, you also have to think about input. And what do I need to recharge my battery when I'm running low?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great analogy in terms of, those Energizer Bunny, commercials where, because I guess a different way I would have reframed the question is, after you do a certain perceived action, for yourself, for self-care, how do you know if it worked, right?
Yeah.
And, you answered it beautifully. Almost, using a battery, like, do you feel better afterwards? Literally, like, do you feel better? Do you feel more energized? Do you feel more fulfilled and satisfied, afterwards? And if not, then we probably need to, readjust. So I think that's a good barometer, because you could just, easily just feel like, it's kind of like your client that just says, oh, let me just sit on the couch and just Netflix. And then not knowingly that, probably Netflix for them took a lot more energy than for someone else that actually, maybe rested, so, they could have not, do Netflix and maybe just rest, so.
Exactly. And a great question to ask yourself to get that barometer going is to actually put a number on it. Like, if you were a phone and you had a battery, what percent charge would you say you have right now? And when I do this with my clients, they really have this aha moment. They're like, oh, I'm probably at 10%, right? And I'm like, well, if you were your phone and you had 10%, what would you do? And they'd say, I would plug it in. I'm like, okay, so what do you need to do for yourself right now because you're at 10%? And so it's really great if you're going to sit down and watch Netflix to first kind of assess, like, where is my energy level? And then assess again when you get back off the couch, where is my energy level now? And that's how you start to learn what works for you and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's a great analogy, because we carry with for better or worse, we carry our phones with us all the time. So I'm trying to do more humanistic analogies, and I keep going back to the machine. So so my next question is, we're going to try to conclude our session here, but, over your, your span of your professional career and coaching all these wonderful people, what would you say are kind of like your top 3 best strategies in terms of setting yourself up for success, either in terms of preventing burnout or improving self-care? Like, do you have like a system, an organization, an infrastructure to this? Like, what would you say are your top 3 best strategies for someone to kind of get started if they don't really know where to start?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is really looking at your thoughts, because they contribute so much to how you feel. So if you're feeling stressed out, then identify what is the thought that I have about my situation. And I think where people struggle is they skip that step. So they notice, like, what are my circumstances and how do I feel? And they don't realize there's like a step in between. And to be able to start to identify that is really helpful, because it's putting another piece of the puzzle in there. And then you can start to see, oh, it's because I'm thinking about it in that way that I feel stressed out. And then it invites you to look for alternatives. Like, how else can I think about my situation? And so that would be like a really big mindset shift that you can do, or a tip to really prevent burnout from continuing, is to just notice that you have certain thoughts that are contributing to the problem. Another thing is to recognize that you actually have a choice in how you feel. And often what I'll challenge my clients to do is I'll say to them, okay, given your circumstances, without changing anything, how do you want to feel? Right? You're feeling stress right now. How do you want to feel instead? And they'll say, I want to feel calm. Most of the time, that's kind of their go-to. And I say, what would you need to think in order to feel calm in this situation? And that's where they start to produce alternative thoughts. So this is, again, giving yourself back the power of being able to shift out of how you feel and kind of reverse engineer the whole process. And we can do that with regards to your results, with regards to your behaviors. There's all kinds of things that can come into place. And then finally, I think the third thing I would say is overcoming the mindset obstacles to self-care. And that is that I don't have the time is usually what people say, or I don't have the energy. And I think if you're saying that, then you're doing it all wrong, because you can't leave yourself for the end. You can't prioritize everything and everyone and then say, if there's time left over, if I have energy left over, then I'll go exercise, because that doesn't work, right? So you have to start with you and then plan your life around your exercise and your sleep and your meals and all the things that you need that are going to charge your battery. If you're not doing that, absolutely, you're going to burn out. No question.
Yeah. So basically, to summarize it, prioritize yourself first.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. We're gonna, close out. I guess what I'd love to learn from you is, what do you personally do for yourself to prevent burnout and optimizing your self-care? Dr. Sharon?
There's a lot that I do, but in a nutshell, what I'll say is I created a business where I love the work that I do. So I look forward to doing it every single day. And that's huge. And in addition to that, it's about lifestyle. So I create my own hours, and I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that. And so I start my mornings with exercise and meditation and all the things that help really center me so that I can be grounded for my clients. And then at the end of the day, I have time for my family. And so I'm sharing these really special moments with my kids and my husband, and I cook meals for us every single night. And so we're eating really healthy food. And so we're putting all of these different things together, making sure, I get enough sleep, and all together it creates this wonderful package that is my life.
That's awesome. And, people hopefully can hear that and say, like, okay, what does, a nice package of self-care look for me? So I know that you have a business, you have, coaching. Tell everyone where people can find you. Tell them about, the book you've written, and how do people, reach out to you?
So my website is drsharongrossman.com, and I have lots of resources on my website. My book is The 7E Solution to Burnout, as you mentioned in the beginning, and it's really a book and a workbook all in one. So if you want to coach yourself through burnout, you don't want to work with someone, this is a great tool, because it's got a whole bunch of stuff in here for you to do that, as well as some online resources. And then for anybody who wants to kind of figure out what's happening with them, what stage of burnout they might be in, and what they need to do next, I created a burnout checklist. And so if you go to bit.ly/my burnout checklist, you'll be able to download that for free, and it'll give you a good sense of all the stuff that we covered today in terms of burnout symptoms, as well as what you can do moving forward. So I hope that's helpful. And again, thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. So guys, definitely check her out. She sounds like a wonderful resource. Get her book, call her up and see how we could help you being able to prevent burnout and optimizing your self-care. So Dr. Sharon, thank you so much for, spending some moments with us and helping our audience and spreading, your wisdom and expertise.
My pleasure.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you feel like this is a benefit for someone else, please share with them as well. And until next time, we will see you here every Wednesday at 5. Next week, we won't be here, but the week afterwards, we will. So please say goodbye to Dr. Sharon.
Bye, everyone.
Guys, thank you so much for watching that episode. We hope you enjoy it. And please remember to like and subscribe down below so you can get continuous updates for future episodes and future guests. And we can't wait for this upcoming season. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.